Hello everyone, Justin Bell here on Drive to Win. I'm obviously in the beautiful studio here at the Wynn Las Vegas, and the show, as always, is brought to you by Mobil1 for the love of driving. We're doing things a little bit differently this time because my guest is back in the studio, the only repeat offender, Ruth Buscombe. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you very much for having me. It's almost like I like Vegas, isn't it?
It's almost like you like Vegas.
I
We
like
should
Vegas.
talk about, we should dig into that a little. Well, I think last time you set off a whole new era of young women wanting to get into racing that think they should go gambling first. Can you imagine? They're probably all going to their careers teachers. Well, then I go to Vegas, right, with my math degree.
I mean, they're not wrong in terms of mathematical skills, as long as, you do it in a sensible way. I think that's actually, risk versus reward teaches them lots of slick skills about life.
I love that. Well, we do have a really great show, obviously, with Ruth here. We're going to get into that. It is Ultimate Race Week, guys. Finally, it's here. We had the Concours just a couple of weekends ago, the Concours Wynn Las Vegas, which was a huge success. We've already talked about that. But Ultimate Race Week, everything is coming together here in Las Vegas. After Ruth has, I was about to say departed us, that sounds bad. After Ruth has gone to find food, I've got Brian Gullbrants, who is COO of Wynn Resorts North America. So he's going to join us to tell us all about what Ultimate Race Week is here for the, for what it means for the casino. So I'm excited about that. But Ruth, A, I'm glad you're here. B, do you like my model?
I do, actually. I was inspecting it. I think it's not got the latest upgrade on it, but never mind.
Well, it would get knocked off anyway, wouldn't it? The way they drive on those opening laps. No, this is an amalgam model. They sent it because obviously Red Bull are the only team sponsored by Mobil1, so it was a lovely thing. Then they told me it was 12 grand, so I thought it was going home with me, but apparently it's not going home with anyone. Maybe you, but not me.
It's good though.
It is, but how accurate is it when you look at it? Because, I mean, obviously the upgrades change all the time, but like the detail they go to, they make it off these all the CAD drawings and everything.
Yeah, I used to be friends with one of the engineers in Ferrari who used to say this was one of his favorite jobs of the year, was to take the actual car model and then what they do, because obviously you don't want to actually print an actual model of your car, so your competitors can put it in the wind tunnel. And try and make it as realistic as possible without giving away any of your IP. And he said he always used to save it for his last job before Christmas because he enjoyed doing it so much.
I love that. Yeah, I'm sure if we put that through the wind tunnel, probably the turbulence they've designed, built in, right? Probably some really negative arrow on it. So it's just like a brick. Anyway, it looks really pretty, and check them out on their website. That's my plug so I can try and take it home. Well, Vegas. I mean, we talked about Vegas a little bit last time I saw you, and it seems so far away. We had so much of the season left to go, but I'm still getting over Brazil a little bit. What about you? I mean, for you were there in the rain, sometimes having a good time, sometimes not, but the race was wonderful.
Wasn't it? It was one of those races that reminded me why you fell in love with Formula One in the first place. I mean, and with all the delays, the fans, everybody from the teams to the drivers to all of the personnel that make a race weekend possible. Obviously all the teams back at home, such a long weekend, but weren't we rewarded with just such a show? And I think, not just as demoed by our car here, Max Verstappen's phenomenal drive from P17 to P1, beating his own record, by the way, from P16 to P3 that he did in 2016 in 16 laps. But also the Alpine story. Absolutely loved it. I got quite emotional actually watching those two boys. It was a race so good. It ended the French Civil War. Like watching those two rivals end up being friends, and actually on the human level, what it means to all of those people in that team. They've had a really tough season, and actually seeing all of the boys and girls in Alpine celebrate, it was so special. What a race.
What you just said is so true, because it's like you tell any young athlete or anyone setting out with a dream of any sport or whatever, but especially in racing, because that's the only one I know, you never take to the grid, doesn't matter who you are, without hoping, believing that it's your day, right? Every mechanic, every team member, everybody from catering onwards, all the way through to the drivers, every one of them believes today's going to be a better weekend, right? That's the way it goes. And for them, they had this extraordinary, almost extraterrestrial weekend. It's probably fueled the passion, not the passion, but the optimism of teams up and down the grid, right? They go, we could do that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we always used to say in Sao Paulo, any team can score points. 2016 there, which was actually the last time we had a wet race there. We were in still a Sauber, different color back then, and we scored points with Felipe Nasr in the wet that day. And we were, again, it was a kind of similar situation of the minnows versus the Goliaths. But racing in the rain in Formula One, when we get proper rain racing, is phenomenal. But racing in the rain in Sao Paulo is really just another level. And of course, we also had Senna's McLaren 5B, and watching Lewis drive that round, I have to say, well done, Honda, for actually allowing us to still run that car in the rain. I think everyone was a little bit worried, but it was just phenomenal. And you kind of felt like the spirit of Senna was there, and you could hear the roar of the crowd all the way around the track. It was just one of those days where, you really fall back in love with Formula One.
When you write your book, it'll be in there.
It was like,
a moment.
I was there when I saw the overtake on turn 7.
But it also makes you remember how glorious those cars sounded. For me, I mean, I did something at McLaren with McLaren at COTA about 2 months ago, and I drove the Solus GT.
A humble brag there.
A humble brag. Stephanie Hansen and Bruno were driving, his winningest. I just tapped the table like I was told not to, didn't I? He's winning it. The 89 car. Yes. Well
15 out of 16 races, 199 points in a single season, has yet to ever be beaten as a record. My personal favorite car.
And when it pulled out of the pit lane, I've got a video of it, and it went by, and Stefan was in the second winningest one or whatever, and they came by. It literally is a Viagra moment, and it made it for me anyway. But it makes you realize that is the noise why people love Formula One as well.
Yeah, and also I think so many of us grew up and that car for me was my inspiration. My dad was a McLaren fan. That was the kind of the car that made me fall in love with racing and Formula One for the first time. So yeah, whenever you get to see old school like Senna car, especially a running one, is super special. And it's a great day. That's actually it's not just it's not just the drivers that get excited. All the engineers get excited as well. We all kind of want to suddenly change our meeting time so that we can actually go out and get to watch it.
That's so cool. Well, we got so much to talk about. But I'm going to do things in a bit reverse because we were just talking about Max's great run. How formidable is a pissed off Max Verstappen and an angry Max Verstappen?
Well, I mean, I think we saw I think, whether you like Max or you don't like Max, it's very difficult to argue that he's not a generational talent. Whether or not he's the greatest of all time, it's really difficult to compare between generations, and I guess we'll see when he's finished his run. But, that was special. And, I think, we all had our opinions on what happened in qualifying. Like, I think if I was him, I'd probably be a little bit annoyed too. And I think, really the champion mindset of channeling that, and, just absolutely stunning driving. It was genuinely a joy to watch, just as much as kind of like joy as watching, the kind of David and Goliath win by Alpine, just watching that. I mean, I think if you were his biggest fan or his biggest enemy, you have to say chapeau and be sportsmanship and just say that was an absolute masterclass.
Yeah, everyone was speechless. I loved it. There's so many things to say about it. And I wonder what we're going to see this weekend. But just a couple of fun little bits of gossip, because you can put it into context. So I'm looking at this model of the car, and you see all the fins, all the aero things. And I always laugh when they go off on the first turn. And their engineer must be like, I don't know what bull you were feeding me during practice, but you're going just as fast and you knocked half the aero off on the sides, right? I mean, it's so delicate. The reason I bring it up is they put out on social media yesterday, Pierre Gasly, the only driver in Formula One history to have cost his team 0 in damages. I would hate to have that brought up with 3 races left.
I know. I was like, why bring it up now? It's so mean. Poor guy. I really rate Pierre. I was lucky or unlucky enough to be kind of racing against him in our kind of little mini championship battle in 2018 when we were Alpha and we had Charles in the car, who Pierre is one of his best friends, still is. And we were racing against him, and actually, the kind of the camaraderie of seeing just like how he handled himself in that car after the disappointment of, obviously losing the Rebel Drive, being back in the Toro Rosso. I really enjoy racing, watching his racing. I don't particularly enjoy racing against him. I think he's a talented driver.
Yeah,
And I think especially in the wet, actually, he's really strong in the wet. And he's one of those drivers that when he's under pressure actually performs well. Same with Ocon. They actually take a step up, I think, in terms of their driving skill, and didn't put a foot wrong. It's really lovely to see him get his flowers. Like I've always rated him as a solid driver on the grid, and I think he definitely deserves a drive and deserves to have his day in the sun.
I like that. Well, just don't damage anything before the end of the year. It's the most useless stat.
I mean, it's so mean.
It's so mean.
Before Vegas as well.
Before you hit this street track. You sit in the pit lane, and as a you see the human side, which sometimes you try your best, obviously, on the broadcast to bring across. But I know this ecosystem. It's a family in there, and there's lots of things we can't discuss about family. But how do you think, and how well do you think Lando and Max are going to be able to balance their friendship? Because it's starting to get the media around now this week on it. And I think Lando was very open, saying, I don't know, I've never been here before in this situation. On a human level, that's super tough, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I can only, if you look at Max and his relationship with Lewis in that championship, battle, and, a lot of water under the bridge, a lot of things happened. And then, Lewis is there commenting on his Instagram post, I think, saying excellent drive, mate, from last week. So I think, we want our drivers to be rivals on track, and you don't want it to spill out into being kind of like toxic outside. I think that's fair enough that Lando doesn't really know how he's going to react. I think he's allowed to be like that. I think Max knows how he'll react, which is he'll visor on, drives one way, visor off, doesn't he carries no like kind of grudges, I don't think, in terms of even driving. I mean, I think he even went up and congratulated Ocon, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
After like him kind of spinning him off and losing a win. So like I think that's it is the way it is. And obviously there is the media's job is to kind of big up some stories and big up some some comments, and remember, you have to you're a driver, were a driver, are a driver.
Let's just say were.
Okay, so maybe it's not like president where you always get to keep the title. But what drivers say when they're in a car, when there's adrenaline going through their body, it's very rare that we have sports that are mic'd up. If you mic'd up soccer players, like every now and again when you have like an NFL player that's mic'd up, you can see the tension around being like, oh, like Pat's mic'd up this week. Yeah. So remember how we're going to play around with him differently. I think we want people to be passionate. We want them to be kind of annoyed. And if you kind of stick a microphone in someone's like face 10 seconds after they get out of a car, when they're, have just been driving around at like an average speed of like 150 mile an hour for the last 2 hours, you want them to be a little bit passionate about it. Like if everybody was just a robot, it'd be a bit boring.
But it's very like what you were saying last time you were on, because I asked you that about the debrief stuff. Whatever the driver tells you in the first 10 minutes after he gets out of the car, you just go, we'll come back to that when it calms down, because we're like, wow. And I mean, you can even hear it on the radio transmissions. For such enhanced talents, sometimes it's like the front end's crap. That's not good for you to know. You're like, can you give us, even Max, like, can you give us a bit more info? I mean, it's just not enough information. But drivers, we're so, and these young guys, they're so young too. They're so full of adrenaline and everything. So no wonder they swear. No wonder they react wrong, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I think if someone asked me to do a strategy briefing in the middle of a Barry's class, I don't think I would answer particularly politely either. As in, I think if my like heartbeat is up, there, and I'm in like my like zone 5 area, and someone's asking me questions, I don't think I would probably be my best self either. Then so, and I think you have to remember that, like take it with a pinch of salt, enjoy the entertainment, but don't judge someone, and like if you wouldn't judge yourself on how you are as you're kind of like running on a treadmill, don't judge.
It's funny because when I was doing the pit lane at like IMSA and Le Mans, they would ask me to go and sometimes say things and do things. And as someone that had just at that point stepped out of the car, I'd be like, no, that's not a question you'll ask a driver, especially now. So I'd leave it to the more journalistic people, to like Andrew Marriott. Do you remember him, Andy? You never worked with him? Well, he's a little old school terrier of a journalist, and I'd send him in there to do the job. Rookies. That was something I wanted to bring up with you. it's the year of the rookie, and
Yeah.
aren't they doing well? And next year the grid's going to be full of them.
Yeah.
How does that change the dynamic?
I think it's great. I think it's great that we're promoting young talent. I think the crop of rookies that we've got at the moment are really exciting. I think and they're all very different as well. I've known Ollie for a long while, so getting him to see, he comes from not too far away from where I was born. I always said that I moved to Modena in Italy when I was at Ferrari when I was 22, and I thought that was pretty brave and pretty cool. And then he's completely destroyed because I think he went when he was 17 or 16 or something. Yeah. So I understand what it's like going, leaving the UK, and I did it as an adult, with a degree. And that was pretty scary. So I've always rated him for, moving when he was a teenager and going and doing that, because I've actually lived it. So I think I've got a bit of a thing there. I think, Colapinto is just the coolest guy ever. The Riz on that kid. Riz on that kid.
Well, it didn't take long to emerge, did it?
No.
First of all, you guys, I was texting with Alex about it when he came on, and I hadn't heard of him. I don't follow all the junior formula from here. So suddenly this kid's picked, and, he was very demure.
Very demure, very mindful.
For the first 8 minutes. And then suddenly his personality, you're starting to see it, the way he drives. He has changed everyone. All the team owners are going, well, okay, well,
yeah.
We don't just have to have the hottest ticket coming out of F2. We could have someone that's got the right promise. It must have really opened people's eyes.
100%. I think he's done an excellent job. I think you speak to the Williams engineers as well, just actually the kind of his effervescence and his joy to be in the paddock has actually rubbed off on a lot of them. I won't put them on blast by saying their names, but they're like, actually, we're kind of more excited to go to work, because it's almost like, he's kind of there, with kind of stars in his eyes, so happy to be there, making the most of absolutely every second, because he doesn't, I think now hopefully he'll have a seat at some point, but when he first came, he was like, right, this is it, this is me, gonna just live every single second. I think it's a really cool lesson. I don't know how many people that are that young could live in the moment so well and perform to such top level. And I think that's rubbed off on all the engineers, around him, and the kind of the guys in the garage and things like that. So yeah, I think he's fantastic, isn't he?
And the weight of Argentina behind it. Suddenly it's like, well, we have Fangio and now we have you. And I'm going, holy crap, that's a mantle that is, talk about what lofty, heavy, coat to put on, but he seemed like his game for it.
Yeah, he's so cool. Riz King.
I love it. Well, here's a question for you. It's like, I felt George and Lewis had this for a while. The young guy coming in, you're unburdened. You don't have the politics of the sport in your face yet. You don't have any championship points to worry about. Do you think there's something to be said for, it's not quite naivete, but it is the fresh-faced young kid coming in. They've suddenly hit their goal, right? I've made it to Formula One. And they seem to have this moment, most of them, have these moments in the sun that you go, good Lord, that's quick.
Yeah, I think it's a double-edged sword. I think they have that, but I think also, they're very aware. They've got the statistics that, it is now or never. And, I think that you cannot compliment it enough of just, how stressful it is. If you've got one race, you step in like Ollie did in, in Super Sub, didn't have a contract. You look at, with Franco, and you can understand that, you have a crash, and a lot of drivers crashed, but maybe that's the difference between you getting a drive next year or not. So I do think that, you have to give them their flowers for doing it, because, just like with any other driver, they are brutally aware of the fact that, they need to deliver. They've got this window to deliver, and, while simultaneously enjoying it and being present in the moment and knowing that, this is you living your dream. Yeah. Also, they are there to do a job, and they're there to try and make sure that their dream doesn't end after one race, one season. So yeah, no, I think bravo. Liam again, has done such a great job as well. We kind of it's almost like saying, that we've kind of forgotten he's a rookie, because he kind of has done, was around obviously last season when Daniel hurt his hand. And he's done such a great job as well, scoring points in a wet Sao Paulo. Again, it's such a tough thing to do as a rookie. You see loads of even very experienced drivers making mistakes, and he didn't. He did such a great job. And we haven't even, touched on the two that haven't yet done races of Antonelli and Doohan, who are, there. And,
it's going to be exciting.
It's going to be very exciting.
Yeah. And some of the old guard, hey, listen, it's like when you bring a puppy in to your old dog, suddenly your old dog starts running around fast. So it's going to be a bit of that too.
I think so. And I hope so. I think it's nice to have, kind of, people with talent get into the system. It's such a shame, you see people like Felipe Drugovich that, still doesn't have a drive. And, you see people that did such great, jobs in junior formula. I kind of want there to be, they're kind of like a reward for succeeding in the junior formula, don't you?
Pesky invasions of other countries took out some good drivers, didn't they, like him? Let's talk about going racing in Las Vegas. Right? I mean, I know you love this place.
I do.
And you enjoyed last year.
I just like to say that I was saying it was going to be an amazing race from the beginning, and I was very smug. It was unbearable, really, when it did turn out to be one of the best races of the year. Because
why were you saying that?
Well, because if you just look at the track, now we've all watched the race. If you haven't yet watched the race, it is now available online, so you can go and watch it. So make sure you have watched it if you haven't. But it's got a bit of everything. Yeah. You can overtake, and you can overtake on a street track, which is such a rare thing to have. Because we had actually one of the highest number, depending on how you count your overtakes, something around the region of about 100 overtakes. Piastri made 20. Because it's a really great race, but there's high risk, high reward. You've got, we had the virtual safety car turning into a safety car. The on paper it's a one stop, but then a safety car can pull it into a two stop. We had people bailing out of that one stop strategy, going to try and hunt down on faster tires. You've got the kind of teams trying to work with like the graining of the tires, which actually ended up being like a real element of performance. We had pit stop battles. We had on track overtaking. I'm also now emotionally attached to the Sphere, so I watching him watch the race made me very happy as well. And it's just got all of the characteristics to be a great race. Plus, this year we have a championship showdown. Mm-hmm. So going into the race, we know we can potentially be crowning our drivers' championship, and that in and of itself changes the entire stakes of the race, because you're going to see everybody is going to be in a slightly different position, because when you've got someone behind you that could potentially win or lose a championship, you race them differently depending on what your position is. So I've always loved the races towards the end of the year. Sao Paulo is what used to often be one where we have these kind of extra dynamics. I think it's the layout of the track with kind of both high risk, high reward, but you can go racing in it. And the fact that it can always be a one or a two stop strategy, depending on how the tyres perform and safety cars. You can't really ask for much more, Justin. That's it.
We could stop the show now. Said it all. It was bloody brilliant. What I was going to ask you, though, I mean, thank you for the wonderful synopsis. But when you first came on the show, we were talking about Vegas, and you were like, you've been coming here for years. Did no one else know it was going to be cold at 11 o'clock night? You made that as a joke. Like, did the teams not do enough research on it? But the cold definitely it led us to some better racing.
Well, yeah, and actually it's not that cold. People are being very dramatic because, the strip itself obviously isn't ground. There's the kind of whole road that goes underneath it. It's just another thing to optimize. Like we're in chaos, there is opportunity. And we saw actually, and I think we'll probably see a similar case this year, that the cars that were really good at getting a lot of energy into those tires and getting them really hot for one time lap in qualifying then actually struggled more in the race, and vice versa. So I always like races where you have a bit of a quali race trade-off, and often you kind of see cars, obviously the Ferrari was on pole, but then was much slower than the kind of Red Bull in the race itself. And then there was the safety car strategy element as well that, kind of twisted over like who succeeded and who failed. So I think whether it's a hot race, whether it's a cold race, obviously as long as we can go racing safely, it's just another kind of, thing to go racing with, and kind of an element of where you can succeed or fail as a team and as a driver.
Yeah. I mean, last year they came in, despite all their simulations, all the data they had, and obviously the fact that you had video games with the track on it meant that, the drivers could see the track before, even though you have big simulators. So the data was out there, but not real data, right? Not real-time data. They now come back this year with cupboards full, right? Terabytes of data. That's your world. How will they prepare differently for this one?
So it's funny you should mention that, because statistically, race 2 at a track is often the most volatile, because you go to race 1 and no one has any data, right? So whatever you learn during the race weekend, pretty much everybody puts an awful lot of weight on, because you go, oh, my simulation wasn't real, and I've come here and I've got actual data. So most teams use the actual data that they get when they're there. So everybody's kind of singing off the same hymn sheet. By the time you've been to somewhere for 10 years, you've got 10 years worth of real data. You get there, if the Friday you get some wacky data, you go, well, that's wacky because I've got 10 years worth of data and I can put that in the bin and I'll just use my 10 years. Now, race 2 at a track, if you think about Miami, 2023. If you think about the second race we did at Baku back in 2017, you think about the second year we go to them, it's often the most exciting because teams are really split on their approach. Some of them will bias how they set up the car, how they go racing, how they model the tires on last year's race data. And then some of them will bias it more on what they see this week. And you typically see a big old split, which actually gives you often spectacular racing, because you will have teams that will go, actually no, we're going to base everything in terms of setup, driving, everything on last year's race. Some people will put it more on what they actually see, because we've got two completely different data points. Maybe the reality is close to one, maybe the reality is close to the other, but you always end up with a bit of a split between the team's ethos.
Wow. Well, the other thing is that last year there was a lot of distraction. The drivers called it distraction. We were so late at night doing everything. But post-event, everybody reflected on not just the race being great, but enjoying being here in Vegas. You see the circus of Formula One increasing in its showmanship. There's nowhere bigger than Las Vegas to have a show. What do they think? What's the gossip on the street? Do the mechanics like coming to Vegas? Do they, because they can have a lot of fun? I mean, what's the energy in the paddock?
I think everybody has their favorites, right? I think everybody has races and elements of racing that they personally enjoy more than others. Like, I understand that Spa is a great track to drive, but I don't get to drive it. And I just don't like getting rained on for 4 days and it's cold and
you're staying miles away.
I'm a basic white girl. I can't get my little, matcha tea. I can't get an acai bowl for love nor money. So I personally don't particularly enjoy that race as much as somewhere like Vegas. I understand it's great for the racing and great for the heritage, but I don't get to drive the car around there. So, so I think, but it's, it does produce some great racing. Same thing with Sao Paulo. I think different people like different elements of the racing. For me, I love Vegas because, I feel like I'm coming home. I have, friends that have almost become family here. So it's great that I kind of get to go see them and go to work at the same time. Quite a lot of people like walking races. So a walking race is one where, it's like kind of like somewhere like Singapore, Monaco, here, where you don't have to kind of drive to work, because it does mean that it's typically more efficient, because when you're done, you can go home. You can arrive when you can arrive and you're a bit more independent. So I'd say generally people are pretty excited about that. And I think with the kind of the session times, everybody gets used to it. The first time we went to Singapore, it was kind of like, how on earth are we gonna deal with this? This is crazy. And now it's just normal. And we have races. Obviously, this is actually 2 hours later than Singapore. FP2 last year was at 2:30 a.m. So actually 10 p.m. is very reasonable.
It's almost, it's not even grown up. Here's something else I just thought of. Ferrari Challenge, first time we've got a support race. They're on Pirellis, but it's not the same compounds, obviously, in construction. More rubber laid down. Normally that's a good thing.
Normally it's a good thing if it's the same kind of rubber. So if it's a different manufacturer of rubber, typically it's worse for tire performance. Obviously, they can also have incidents. So if there's any kind of oil or accidents on the track, that's bad for performance. But you're kind of it's nice generally to have kind of support events, especially, when we get to have, we've announced today, next year we're going to be having the F1 Academy out here, which I know a lot of the girls are driving there, and I've had an unbelievable number of messages of being like, that is so cool, can't wait to see that.
And it'll be very good for the exposure of that in North America.
Amazing. So I think it's great. Obviously first race made sense that we couldn't, we weren't in a position to be able to support series. I think it's great. We've got step one, and then actually to be able to have like, you know, an FIA Academy race next year is like the next level. So I'm super excited for that.
So I've got a lot of friends in the Ferrari paddock, so it's going to be. Some of them, I don't know how they're not going to hit the wall. I mean, just saying. And also the great thing is that they will use every square inch of the track.
Yeah, that's not great feedback all pros.
It's going to be literally every corner to corner. Well, we are inside the Wynn Las Vegas. Obviously, this is a betting town, and Jeremiah, my producer, is quite a sports book kind of guy. He told me the first time in years that we have 3 co-favorites for the win. It's obviously Max, Lando, and Leclerc, all at 3-1. Would you take that bet?
Oh, it's interesting they haven't put Oscar in there, isn't it? Is that
he's going to?
They assume.
I'm not allowed to say because he doesn't want everyone to do it, but he's betting on Oscar.
I was going to say because I feel like if Oscar and Lando are together, then McLaren would be able to swap them round. But yeah, no, I think that does make sense because, you know, the reason for that is that on paper, just in terms of raw car performance, the Ferrari really good at low speed cornering. And Charles is, you know, stunning when it comes to qualifying.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you were going to kind of probably bet on pole in terms of 1 lap pace, I think on paper going into, obviously there's a lot of other things that can change it. You know, you probably put your money on Charles based on recent form and the track layout and how they are on the low speed cornering. I think it's very difficult to bet against Max Verstappen right now. And as we talked about how drivers excel under pressure, you know, to win the championship, if he wins the race, he's got it. If he just finishes in front of Lando, he gets it. If Lando DNF, he gets it. And yeah, I think it's folly to bet against a Max Verstappen when he can win a championship. And then of course, you know, like we've never seen Lando in this position before. We've never seen him, you know, on the kind of the ultimate day of reckoning. And I think it's really exciting to see, you know, what's he going to do with that? Because as you say, the gauntlet is thrown. You know, he knows what he needs to do. All of McLaren knows what he needs to do. And just because, you know, they haven't yet beaten, you know, Red Bull doesn't mean that they won't. And obviously I think it's something like the latest odds, it's something like 83.15% chance of winning the Constructors Championship. So that is a big one as well. So, you know, it's all to play for. So
it's very exciting.
I like it.
I know you do. And I can't wait to talk to you on Sunday morning. I'll text you and find out, you know, how you thought it all went. Well, it's time now for the Mobil1 Pit Stop for the love of driving, especially as we have the RB19 here. Ruth, what track does Las Vegas remind you of?
Spider Pig.
Spider Pig?
Spider Pig.
Where's that from?
From The Simpsons. It looks exactly like Spider Pig.
God, wow. I'm showing my age now. I'm going to have to ask my daughter, but that's very funny.
It looks exactly like Spider. I remember when we first saw it, we were like, is this real? This looks like Spider Pig. Yeah. Okay,
you can go with that. Which of the new rookies would you like to work with as a strategist?
Unfortunately, can't answer that question. Like a parent, you can never pick a favorite child.
But you would be excited as a strategist to work with any of these young drivers?
to work with any of them in equal measure.
Okay, that's what I say about my kids.
Can't say favorites, even if you have one.
Now you're not in the hot seat on the pit wall, but you know you're hot seat commentating. Do you ever get that backseat driver frustration in the middle of a race at a call that's made and go, oh, you could see how that's going to go wrong?
No, I think because you're actually quite busy helping them direct the world feed, doing a bunch of race strategy. So for me, it would be like a case of, we didn't set that up, or we weren't able to communicate that to the fans. So I actually am still pretty busy doing race strategy, but just doing it for everybody at home.
I love that. Can Lewis get number 8 at Ferrari?
I would love it if he could. You know, I love a happy Lewis. I think he's a great human being. And Ferrari was my first home, so it would be amazing if he could.
Okay. If you could go back 25 years, pre-AI, pre the incredible data that telemetry streams, what would your job be? What would you apply for in Formula One?
Oh, I'd be a strategist because I could carry the IP in my head and then I'd win everything.
You win everything.
And I would make it so the MP44 won every single one.
I think that's a brilliant answer. And this is the most serious question I could ever ask you. Has choosing your outfits for each race become a joy or a burden?
It's way more stressful than any other element of any of my professional career. And I unfortunately started to be like a George Russell and match the aesthetic. And now I've set myself too much of a challenge. So now I will be matching the Vegas aesthetic for all 4 days. That's all I can say to you right now.
Beautiful answer, Ruth, and I can't wait to see what it's going to be like. Well, Mobil1, obviously we are here with this beautiful Red Bull in front of us right now. But if you're listening to this podcast, it probably means that you kind of like driving. And as always, I reflect back on moments in my racing career that I could have done a little bit better, actually, half the time. And I remember as we're on a street circuit here, it was the Birmingham Super Prix and Formula Ford. I got pole position ahead of Alain Niche. And I'd never led a race before, Ruth, and I took off into the distance, and I was so dominant until I kept on looking in my mirrors, forgot the braking point, rolled the car. However, and my dad came up to me and he went, I told you how to get off the line. You knew you could lead the race. I said, but you didn't tell me what to do when I was in the lead. So my ignorance came through. But anyway, I've always had a love of driving, and that's really what Mobil1 is all about. It's a reminder that when life's too full of screens and routines, the ultimate escape is patiently waiting in your driveway. Mobil1 for the love of driving. Just visit loveofdriving.us/drive to win to learn all about it. Ruth, it's a joy. Thank you so much for coming here. You've got a really busy week.
A really busy but a really fun week. Can't wait for it.
I love it. Well, good luck in Vegas in every single way.
Thank you very much.
All
Good luck to you too.
Thank you so much. Well, always a great time having Ruth on the show. I really appreciate it. It makes me realize my knowledge base is about this big compared to hers. Well, also a man that puts me in my place, Brian Gullbrants here, COO. Honored to have you, obviously. We've spent a lot of time recently, Brian, between the Concours and getting ready for Ultimate Race Week. But I've worked something out. You're a car guy.
I am.
I know, right?
Love the automotive industry, cars, speed. And you kind of grew up with it. Some of us fall into it. Some of us grew up with it. So it was in the blood.
Do you remember the first car you saw that you went, oh my God, that changed my perception on what I want?
Yeah, my dad had a 73 Vet with a 454 in it. And then he traded it in for a 930 Turbo Carrera, which I got to learn how to drive stick on.
Perfect. Right?
It was, after that, it was all over. It just, love it.
Yeah.
Passion for it.
It's funny because having got to know you and seeing the way you operate, your management style, and the team you build around you, you could have had a role in the car industry. You know, it's management of big organizations is probably there's probably some very common denominators, right?
They'd never get me out of the car. That's the problem. So
you wouldn't be a good. So you'd
No, I
take
wouldn't
people
be- I
like
wouldn't
me out of a job. So yeah. Well, we're here at Ultimate Race Week.
Yeah.
And obviously the Concours, the Wynn Las Vegas Concours was such a success. People are literally talking about it around the world. So we know we did our job there. But now we're here. It's Formula One. A quick question that came to mind is the rest of Las Vegas gravitated to Super Bowl. They were like, that's what we're going to hang our hat on.
Yeah.
How did the Wynn just say Formula One, that's going to be our thing? Obviously 10 years of it, but what made you guys gravitate to the Formula One?
We had a group of people come in several years ago, a year before the race, and sit down. Emily Prazer, Stefano Domenicali, Renee Wilm, they all sat, people from Liberty and from Formula One sat down, and I took the meeting, and we were immediately knew that this was going to be something fantastic. Our corporate team, everybody was in, Craig, everybody, and we knew it was the right thing to do, a great, perfect brand match. And we were excited about the opportunity to support Formula One here in Vegas. I mean, you think about the excitement of the Strip any Saturday night, and then you think about this thing running down 20 of these running 200 miles an hour down the Strip, right past the front doors of Wynn Las Vegas, and it couldn't get any better. So we're so pleased with the relationship we have with Formula One and LVGP, and the team are great, and we've got many of the teams staying here. You name it, it's happening here at Wynn. It's a lot of fun, and it's perfect for our loyal guests to come in and just go, just another weekend at Wynn. But it really is leveled up. It's amazing, and this year even better than last year.
Yeah, you can see it. I mean,
you feel it.
Last year, I heard comments as I'm walking around. No one knows who I am. I'm walking around. And you hear people, again, a combination between race fans and people there was a conference going on this time last year, and they're walking around and they're going, oh, I didn't realize that the Wynn was a race, was so involved in racing. And you did that very well. The placement of the cars, some of the world's rarest cars, the Solus GT and Bugattis, and incredible. Talk about the activations this week, because it seems to be every day something's happening.
Yeah, we got, I don't know if it was really lucky or just lucky to have a great team to put everything together. But last year we had amazing activations, and this year just as good, if not better. We've fortunate enough to partner with 101 Studios in the world of Yellowstone with David Glasser and Taylor Sheridan. They knew some people and introduced us to the AmFAR people, AIDS Research. They do a big event out in Cannes at the film festival every year. And somehow we got it over the finish line. So we're going to have the first AmFAR dinner here Friday night before qualifying. And it's honoring Sylvester Stallone and his wife, as Diana Ross coming in. Jay Leno's going to be the host, and a bunch of A-listers, and Sotheby's that did the RM Sotheby's auction last year that auctioned off Lewis's winning F1
17 million or whatever.
Insane. It was beautiful. They're going to actually partner with AmFAR and do their big auction amidst the crowd there at the AmFAR dinner Friday night. So that should be a lot of fun. Lewis, last year he did a Plus 44 collaboration with Murakami. This year it's with Tyler, the Creator. I think the space is 4 times as big as it was last year. He's doing a few things. We've got the new Pagani dealership that just opened up. We've got the McLaren experience that's amazing. We have a Bugatti event that's happening, 24, or we might be 25. I know we're confirmed with 24 Bugattis, their owners, 50 different people coming in. We did a little negotiation back and forth, and somehow we got Stefano to approve the Bugattis running around the track. So these guys are flying in their Bugattis from all over the world. They're going to come in here, and we have a full week of activity program for there. It's going to be an amazing weekend for them. They're staying at the Wynn Grid Club. They're going to race their cars around the track. They're in for some surprises. And on our South Valet, we're going to dedicate the entire drive to 24, hopefully 25 different Bugattis, all laid out for our customers to enjoy and for them to enjoy. And then they're going to get to race around the track. So a lot of fun things. We have the Ferrari challenge that's here. They're all staying with us, and their activation is across the street. They're going to race as a supplemental race to F1 this year, which is going to be exciting. The F1 Academy, sponsored by the Female Quotient, that she's pulling. Shelley's pulling everybody together, including Susie Wolf, that Toto's wife, that actually runs and focuses on developing Formula One for women. I think that's going to be fun. I think that's Thursday. So every day we've got something. Jacob & Co. Jacob's going to be here. He's bringing in all of his customers and throwing a little bit of a shindig and unveiling some of his new watches and timepieces. So that'll be fun. I guess the list just keeps going. I'm sure I'm forgetting some things.
So your social calendar's big this week.
Everybody's is. Yes,
it's so exciting, but
it's fun.
The one thing we mustn't ever forget, and I know that's your mission statement, is you have amazingly loyal customers that come here and they repeat and they come back. As you say, they're also being entertained while they're here. But a lot of them are going to go to, as you say, Wynn Grid Club. We got grandstands. I mean,
Wynn Paddock.
There's many ways people have been able to get involved.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting crossover, isn't it?
It's great.
That they go from people that like gambling maybe to watching the ultimate gamble, which is young racing drivers on track. Yeah,
and there's some people that are just coming out here to enjoy the excitement and the atmosphere.
Yeah.
May or may not even go to the race. They're just here to have fun and kind of soak it all up. But our team has done such a great job programming everything. We have 13,000 ladies and gentlemen here that just crush it every day. And they always rise up to these moments, whether it be Concours, Super Bowl, or F1 last year, F1 this year. And we're really excited to be able to host all these people at our place and have a lot of fun and show people the best of the best.
That is a perfect way to sum it up. But before I let you go, if on Saturday night, if you were take off your shirt, what color shirt would be underneath? Who would you be rooting for on Saturday night?
Which is my favorite child? Yeah, no, I don't think I can answer that question politically correct. But I listen. I think it's great that there's a significant race both in the constructors and the championship. I think seeing McLaren and Ferrari and Red Bull and Lando and Charles Leclerc and Max, and it's great that there's competition. It's great that the cars are all really close and there's not one that's just pulling away.
Yeah.
And so from race to race, it's really exciting. And I think Vegas was a really exciting technical race last year. The takeovers were exciting. Unfortunately, we felt really sad for Lando crashing really on first or second lap. It was
very early,
too early. And so hopefully he has a great shot at a great race. And we wish all the best to everybody that's here. And yeah, it might be multicolored. Yeah.
And of course, we could have the new champion dancing in excess on Saturday night. You know what I mean?
We're good however it ends, as long as everybody's safe and everybody has a great time.
Perfect, Brian. Well, thank you. I can't wait. I can't wait for the whole weekend. So I hope you really enjoyed the show. Obviously, so much to talk to with Ruth. She really is the fountain of knowledge. But watch it on Saturday night. However you watch it, I'm a big fan of watching the F1 app. But if you are here in Las Vegas, just come through the Wynn. It's all happening here, even if you don't have tickets to go to the race. A big thanks, obviously, to you, Brian, for your continued support of Drive to Wynn, and to Mobil1 for the love of driving. This show will be coming out on Thursday, and I have a huge guest, very connected to this car, who will be joining me for our Saturday episode. Take care, everyone, and enjoy Ultimate Race Week.